Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for everyone to join this talk, and I'm sure you will love this talk and enjoy this. So I'll before I just start, I just wanted to mention that in case if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask in between or towards the end of the presentation, either way as you prefer. So let's get started. So I want to touch upon this topic mainly because software dependencies are part of each and every developer's life. So are software vulnerabilities. But while we have very good set of tools to handle the dependencies, handling the vulnerabilities is very, very confusing because it creates a lot of commotion when customer find the vulnerabilities and you feel very blindsided as well. So that is the reason in this talk, I want to discuss a way to manage this so that the vulnerabilities can be handled very easily and very early in the development phase. So as Raju mentioned, a quick introduction about myself. I'm Leela. I'm working as a senior software engineer at JFrog, and I work on developing the applications in Golang and Java as well. And I served as internal security champion also in JFrog. And I'm also experienced in developing Jenkins plugins and CI/CD frameworks as well. So let's get into the actual topic right away. Just 1 minute, there is some problem with my video. Ari, Raju, are you seeing my video?
It's not showing right now.
Okay, so
we can hear you. We can hear you just fine. I'm not sure if you want to try it one more time. If not, you can feel free to continue, and we certainly can see your slides and everything.
Okay, sure. Okay. So by end of this talk, you will know what is the vulnerability management and why is it important to have vulnerability management system right in the development phase itself, and what are the stages of vulnerability management you should have in your process. So these are the things we will be touching upon and then deep diving in detail. So the first one is what is vulnerability management. So this is a process of identifying, evaluating, treating, and reporting all the security vulnerabilities that you're having in your systems and the software that runs on them. So this is called vulnerability management. And why do we need this? Because vulnerabilities provide opportunities for attackers and hackers to enter into your system. Once they are inside, they can abuse all the resources we are using, and they can steal the data or deny the access to our access to the services as well. So that is the reason if you do not identify and patch these vulnerabilities, you are effectively leaving all the doors to attackers to enter into your network. That is not something we all want, isn't it? So what is the process? How can we avoid having this in our system? So when creating a vulnerability management system, there are a lot of stages that involves in, but mainly there are 4 stages that any person has to consider into the process to ensure that there are no vulnerabilities or overlooked. And having the system also helps us finding vulnerabilities, and the found vulnerabilities are addressed appropriately. Yeah, as I said, the process involves many steps, and each organization have its own way of handling the vulnerabilities, but mostly they will be following 4 main stages. The only difference would be how they are implementing these 4 stages. So let's see what are those. The first one is identifying vulnerabilities, and the second one is evaluating the found vulnerabilities and treating them, and finally reporting the vulnerabilities. So these are the major 4 steps that one has to consider in their management process of vulnerabilities. So let's get into each stage in bit detail and understand how one has to incorporate these in their development process. So the first one is identifying vulnerabilities. So this requires identifying all the vulnerabilities that are affecting your system so far in the code base. And introducing a compliance and security tool in the continuous integration build helps in identifying them as early as the dependency declaration stage. So as a developer, you will be handling with a lot of dependencies in your code and adding new dependencies and new tools as you develop your application. So as soon as you add them, it is important for you to know whether that dependency is causing any new vulnerabilities in terms of security or in terms of licensing, all of this. So when we have a tool that is finding all this information right in the early stage of development, it would be great. So in our development process in JFrog, we have an Xray tool that identifies all the security vulnerabilities and license violations early and blocks a build if there are security issues in the development phase itself. So this will give a provision for a developer to not to proceed until he fixes the issue and then make it secure enough. This provides an automated and continuous auditing of software artifacts and dependencies throughout the development lifecycle from coding to production. So that is what every developer requires, right? Because it takes very large effort to fix them if you find very much later in the development process, like right before releasing or right before going to production. So rather than that, when it is found in development lifecycle itself, as a developer, you will be able to come up with a plan to fix it and patch the problem and proceed with much more confidence. So I just wanted to give you a pictorial view of an automated system that we have in our company, where CI server requests a build to be scanned as soon as the developer pushes the code into source system, be it GitHub or VCS, any VCS system. And then the pre-configured Xray will watch the triggers, and when it finds a violation, it will respond with an indication that the build job should fail. That helps you identify vulnerabilities at the development stage itself. But when the build fails, you will be notified via mail or via Slack notification, whatever you're using in your system, or Jenkins mail notification. So, so that you will be knowing that the build is failing because of the dependencies that you have introduced or the code you have written. So that's the stage one. Now let's move on to the stage two. Evaluating the vulnerabilities. Now you found the vulnerabilities. Now you got to know that these are the vulnerabilities that you have in your system or in your application code. What is the next step? How do we evaluate? Why should we evaluate first of all? Because when you're identifying the vulnerabilities, it is important to evaluate vulnerabilities and the severity of those vulnerabilities, because it determines where to prioritize our security efforts. Because there is no point in spending lots of time in fixing low severity threats. Whereas when there are so many high severity or critical severity of threats, spending time on low severity doesn't make sense, isn't it? That's the reason we need to evaluate and know what is the severity of each threat that you have already found and come up with a plan to fix all of them. So this is a sample report from Xray tool. When a build is scanned by Xray tool, this is the report you will be getting, and it has around 8 violations, and all of the violations, they reach a severity. So you know that there are high severity violations. There are 3 and then 2 low violations. So this way you will have a clear picture that you have to start working on high severity first rather than picking up low severity first. I hope that makes sense. And if you start remediating the most severity vulnerabilities first, by knowing what are the artifacts that are being impacted, you can reduce the chance that an attack will occur while securing the rest of your system. So that's absolutely right? So when the severity is high or critical or major, that means that these are like very prone to spoil your security, and you're giving a provision to hackers enter into your system. So if you make sure that you are taking care of these severity vulnerabilities first, that means you are securing your system majorly. So next one is stage 3. Now you found the vulnerabilities, you evaluate it, and then you have a plan in place. Now, how do we remediate? So when the plan is in place, you can start beginning the remediation efforts. But during this phase, we will be increasing monitoring or reducing access to the areas identified as at risk as well. But as a developer, in some cases, when violations are detected in your development process, you would like to accept or whitelist some of these violations. Because if you find 8 violations during your build, or especially this is very important point to consider when you're scanning your system right now. I mean, a legacy application which you have in place from a couple of days or months or years, if you just have started taking care of scanning on regular basis, you most likely you will be finding a lot of violations in the beginning, a mix of major and high and critical and low as well. But it is practically impossible to fix all of them in a short span of time or in the moment. So you should have a plan like, okay, first I will be fixing this, and then next low severity, and then normal severity. All of these plans should be there. But until then, we can't keep failing the build, isn't it? So that's the reason we will have to whitelist some of the violations until we have fix ready. Usually this will happen in 4 cases. First would be the conditions needed for that vulnerability to happen or not met in a specific case. Your particular execution case is very different than where that particular condition is meeting. And as an organization, your company is aware of the violation, but they would still like to release the product. And also there is a chance that violation is not a showstopper, and you would like to deal with that later or in the next version. And finally, as I just said, violation is valid, but you need more time to deal with it. I mean, more time to fix it, or more time to diagnose this and analyze where the root cause is and then how to fix all of this. You need little more time. So these situations, the time-based ignore rules enables us to silence a violation for a set of period, so that you will have enough time to fix them and then take care of rescanning later. So how can we do that? So here is a sample configuration that we have in that Xray tool provides us, where you will be able to ignore the violations. That enables us to have a granular control on the violations that should be ignored. So where you can select what is the type of vulnerability you want to ignore, and for what component you want to ignore, and for what artifact you want to ignore, and what watch. All of these you will have a flexibility of controlling the ignore rule. And then finally, there is an expiry date. So by setting this expiry date, you will be able to silence that particular violation until that period. So as I just said, by setting this date on ignore rule, according to severity of vulnerability and CVSS score, helps us easing the remediation process. When it is a low severity, the build will be still failing because it's a vulnerability. So for the low severity ones, you can set an expiry date, and then you can take care of remediating that particular vulnerability slowly and then gradually. So during this grace period that we are defining in this configuration, the build will not fail and the violation will be ignored. And once the period expires, again the ignore rule will be deleted. And if the build still contains the violations even then again the violations will be created and will start failing from there. So this feature is really helpful for a developer to silence the build until he is really ready to fix it. But of course, the timings, how do we decide, depends on organization and the team collaborative decision that we will talk in the next slide. So timelines, as I just said, how to decide the timelines? Usually it is decided by organizations, and is also recommended to decide based on the CVSS score, Common Vulnerability Scoring System. So in our company, I just have put a sample ignore rule SLA here. So what we do is, whenever we find a critical severity vulnerability, we will have an SLA of up to 5 calendar days. So a developer can fix that particular critical vulnerability within 5 days from now on. So the expiry date will be set to 5 days from now. And at the same time, for high, we will be going for 30 calendar days. But when we say 30 calendar days, because it is still high, first step will be investigation. Is it affected severely or not? We will be verifying, validating, and if it is severely affected, then again we need to sit down and then communicate with the team and take immediate action. But when it is not much affected in terms of the functionality and the scope of the area, then you will be taking 30 calendar days. And rest all, like medium, normal, low, you will have up to 90 calendar days SLA to set the expiry, but not later than 120 in worst cases. So this is the kind of ignore rules SLA that we follow. So this enables our developers in such a way that we will have a clarity on what severity of vulnerabilities we will be first working on, and then what need to be fixed, so that in that order we will be able to make sure that we are making our system secure enough. And final stage is reporting vulnerabilities. After remediating, reporting vulnerabilities may seem very unnecessary, but it will help you improve your security and responses in the future for sure. Because having records of all the vulnerabilities that we found during investigating the current system will definitely help you the future events as well. I'll just give you an example of our recent scenario where we found a security issue. So where we had to quickly go back to our patch history and to see what was the possible routes and the times of the entries of that particular attacks have happened. So that is where the reports will really help you in figuring out and narrowing down the current issue as well. So Xray provides a beautiful way of reporting all the security vulnerabilities. So we used Xray tool at most to get all that information. Like the left-hand side one is the vulnerability report where no remediation exists, and the right-hand side is with all the CV IDs and CVSS scores and with the remediations. So finally, the key takeaway from this meetup I just wanted to mention is having a vulnerability management system in the development process is very important for any organization, irrespective of what level of products they have and what kind of releases they are doing, because it will ease the remediation process a lot for the developers, and you will not have to worry about security threats right in the last minute of releasing or doing annually or monthly, quarterly audit, and then finding the issues then and then all together sitting down to solve all of them. And remediating most severe vulnerabilities first to avoid security threats and hacks is very important, rather than spending time on unnecessary threats. Threats or threats, I agree, but you should have a proper plan while evaluating and then accordingly have them remediated. And the third point I clearly wanted to mention is having ignore rules is very important, and it makes the process very seamless and easy as well for developers and the company as well, because it will provide you a provision of silencing the bill so that you will be able to proceed with the development process, but at the same time you will be able to take care of the remediation as well. And having the right tools to support you to analyze the vulnerabilities and then fixing the vulnerabilities early in the development is also very important. So we use Xray. So there are a number of tools out in the market, so we can check it out. But I'm sure you have to look at Xray tool, and then you will find a lot of benefits in that tool. And an effective vulnerability management program continually monitors, analyzes, and assesses the risk, and wrapping its arms around the weaknesses of security and shining a light on exposures that can negatively impact the enterprise. So that is why this is very important in any system, any management, any organization. So any questions or comments? That's all I have to share here. I'm just checking chat box.
Yeah, thank you, Leela, for the nice presentation. So yeah, there are a few questions on the Google Doc. So let me share my screen first.
So the questions we have in the document, should I start answering?
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. So I see first question, how is each package vulnerability identified while building, like NPM and PIP? So Xray tool provides us a great provision of selecting the package type. So Xray tool with Artifactory integration. When a build is deployed into Artifactory has a provision of scanning the type of the artifact. When I say artifact, it's like it could be jar, it could be NPM, it could be Maven build, it can be a Docker image, all of this. So it will Xray for the watch and scans the package accordingly. I hope that makes sense. And the next question is, how do we identify the development process is violating the license? So again, it depends on the tool that you are using. Whereas we have Xray, we will have a provision of creating the policies and watches, where you can select what type of watches you can create, like license or security. So according to the type of the watches you have, it will validate the license of the each dependency that you are adding in the form.xml or in your Gradle, wherever you are declaring your dependencies and figuring out if that particular version of dependency has any security threats or license threats, and accordingly it reports the violations.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on that, Leela. So that's a question from my side. So yeah, as a developer, yeah, I might be stealing someone's code, right? Or I could not be referencing the right source. I could be doing bunch of things to, I mean, find my way around the license. So yeah, how do we identify that? I mean, do we scan the code base, or how does that work? Like, actually, I wanted to know more about like what is license violation in first place, and how do you do that in a process?
So what is license violation is, so it's, for example, I mean, I'm just taking a random example. If you're using Commons IO, Apache Commons IO as one of the dependencies in your application, if Commons IO, a particular version is having a weak management of passwords or a weak management of handling the file operation, that comes under a security threat. That comes under a vulnerability. Right, so that is why it is not recommended to use that version of the dependency of Commons IO. Okay, so when Xray scans it, it finds that this version is not secure enough, and then there. So this is example of security. Coming to the license, again, I mean, just for example, I'm taking Commons IO, but if you are using any particular third-party dependencies or any open source tools in your application, if they don't have enough strong license information declared to use the dependency, that's when it starts violating the license-based vulnerability. So the license of any open source tools have to define the license properly, and the strong license need to be given. Even if it is open source, the license information should be declared properly and appropriately. If that is not there, the license violations will start throwing up.
For each and every library I'd be using, that's a requirement.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I might be, I mean, importing, for example, while building app in React, we might be using hundreds, thousands libraries, right? So all of them, they need to have those license defined. How does it work? I mean, not everyone is, I mean, good at defining the license, right? So
correct. So each JFrog Xray tool has a package of different licenses, like open source open source license, and then enterprise license and enterprise plus. All these licenses defined in the library in place. So it will compare with the existing licenses out there in the market, and with the license that your application third-party dependency is using. And if it is not fitting into the library, then that's when it throws the violation. So as an organization, if you are okay to use that license, irrespective of the violation, then you will have a provision of violating it, ignoring it permanently or temporarily to ignore until you find a best alternative.
Okay, no license definition is also a license violation then. I mean,
yeah, no license is, it comes under license violation, because when if the tool you're using is not having license, that means they can change anytime, and the application that depends on that particular dependency can impact anytime, because when you're giving to customer using a no license third-party dependency, it can cause anything. So that's the reason it is not recommended to use the no license, but at least it should have open source license strongly defined and mentioned there.
Okay, so yeah, that answers that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so is Xray open source tool? You have trial license. You can try for 14 days, I think, for free, and then experience all the features that it provides, and accordingly you can decide if your organization needs it, and then you can take a call on that. Threat is evaluated per package or per application or entire architecture or in all steps to calculate SLA. So threat is evaluated per artifact. When I say artifact, it's like per file, jar file or package file or Docker image or NPM package. These are all called artifacts, individually artifacts. So threats will be identified. I mean, the scan will happen on each artifact, and the threats will be found and then reported in the analysis. Now, SLA, coming to SLA, when you are calculating SLA, it is per violation. Either it will be security violation or license violation. SLA is per violation. So for each violation, you can take a call on what is the estimated period of fixing it and all the dates you can come up with per violation.
So I have a question on this part. So for example, like if we say SLA is violated in like let's say last week or in like let's say a few days, so does that mean like the number of violations has actually the limit calculating like by referencing all of the build which generates artifact? Does that mean that way? I mean, like, let's say, for example, if we have 100 builds and 2 of them has severe vulnerabilities and 3 of them has minor one, and let's say that one reaches the SLA. So will that throw some kind of alert saying that SLA or the error budget is just used up?
I'm not sure if I understood the question properly. So can you repeat it once?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's say, for example, we have 100 builds or 1,000 builds per week. So let's think of that, right? So if we have violations of, let's say, for example, if there is very severe vulnerability, which is on 10 of the build, like 10 of 1,000, right? On the total. So does that mean like SLA is violated, or let's say, for example, if we have 1,000 artifact of 100 services, that means 10 build per service, and if the vulnerability is on one specific artifact only, so will that also like counted under the SLA?
So in the practical real-time application, you will be giving, I mean, when you're releasing to your customer, it will be either the Docker image or it will be either NPM package. That will be the deliverable, right? So this package will be created using multiple artifacts. So it consider, let's take Docker image. Docker image will require, if it is a Java-based application Docker image, then it will require a jar or var file to be bundled inside the Docker image, right? So as part of var or jar, again, there will be multiple sub-jars. Like your application only is having multiple modules, and then 5 modules together, we have created a bundle of var file and then created. So now when the scan happens, it happens on the each and every layer of the entire package. So Docker image is the topmost layer. And then the next immediate layer is jar jar1.jar, and then the next layer will be 2 and 3 jars, and then 2 has 4 as a sub, I mean 2A, and then 3 has 3A and 3B. So these are all the layers of the image or package. So the scan will happen on all the artifacts, and then the report will be generated. Now, so each security violation that is reporting, it will clearly show what is the impacted artifact. Is it like the entire image is impacted, or only a particular jar file is impacted, or is it like when you are bundling the image, you might be using some third-party applications like maybe Elasticsearch or Postgres, all of these as well. So maybe those are having the issues. So it will show you the impacted artifact. So accordingly, you can define the SLA. If it is related to your own code, then from the organization level, you can take a call and then consider the SLA. But whether to release the product or not, it depends on the severity of the security violations that you are finding.
Okay, so that also means like there will be a separate scanning for, let's say, for example, if we have jar file running in Docker, so there will be separate scanning for Docker and in the base image and also the artifact as well, right?
Correct. Correct. Okay, so what are the benefits was, sorry, I couldn't see them. What are the main benefits of main
What is
benefits
the
was
main
scanning with
benefits?
GitHub or Docker Hub versus JFrog? So I think Ari is typing.
I was a little ahead of myself. I thought you were answering that question before. I was just adding an additional benefit, but please continue, Leela.
Yeah. So scanning with GitHub or Docker Hub versus JFrog, the main benefits with JFrog Xray product is it has very tightly coupled scanning policies defined in Xray. So when compared to GitHub or Docker Hub scanning, it will give you much more granularity of violations that you have or the security threats you are introducing in your system. So that is where it stands out, and then it will help you in finding out very granular information about what is not right in your system.
Yeah, just a follow up. I mean, on that. So, does I mean the JFrog ecosystem, it also suggests the implementation? I mean, recently I stumbled upon this tool called Kubescape that helped me scan my Kubernetes cluster and find whatever bad practice I was doing regarding the security. And on its scan, at the very bottom, it was giving me, okay, this is CV related to this, and you can fix this with these things. Like, does JFrog, I mean, also suggest those things? Okay, upgrade this version, or are there any? Because it's usually like when there is something reported, it would be nice to have like what's next, right? How to fix that. So do you guys, I mean, through the platform, enable that?
Yeah. Yeah, and also if you're a developer, you will have there is a IDE plugin as well for Xray. So right when you're developing in your IDE, IntelliJ has Eclipse has plugins. So when you're developing itself, as soon as you introduce a new code or new dependencies, you can quickly scan and then check if you're not introducing any new violations or you're solving. I mean, whenever you're fixing the existing violations, it is very easy. So that will help you in figuring out as early as in development rather than waiting till the last minute.
Okay, so yeah, I was just going through the GitHub, and yeah, I found bunch of, I mean, client libraries, right? So usually, I mean, this Xray system, it will do all the scanning on the remote server, or does the process happen locally? How does it work? Just wanted to know a little bit about it.
Plugin, is it?
Yeah, like yeah, to plug in, or whenever I'm doing let's suppose git commit, I want to know prior, right? So can we plug Xray before that and just get the benefits? And how does that work? Like,
you need a remote server where Xray will be installed and then set up with the appropriate watches and policies as per your organization security scan you wanted to look. I mean, it's like some organizations doesn't want to look at license violations in the beginning, at least when they're just starting out. But the security is something they will be always looking at, because that will give a lot of scope for hackers. So that is how you will have to define the watches and policies in Xray and then keep it ready. So when you are building your application or core source code, when you deploy the build into the Artifactory remote server, so Xray automatically scans both builds or artifacts that you are deploying and then gives you the report.
That's after the build process, right? What about me developing something locally? And you mentioned earlier there's a plugin in that can be integrated with the developer ID I'm using. So does that also work the same way?
Yeah, same way, same way. Even for IDE, you will be defining the remote server, which where your Xray is installed and then all the policies and watches are defined. Or you can have a local installation of Xray as well, because Xray has the CLI installation available as well, or the Docker image also you will be finding, and you can install in your local. But I would recommend to have a remote server so that all the developers in the organization will be referring to the same set of the watches and policy rules we are following, because it's most likely when you're having your own server in the local setup, there is a high chance that you will be missing out configuring some particular violations compared to the other developer.
Yeah, agreed. Either we have a sync policy of all those things, right? Or we have a centralized place to, govern that.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I saw one more question also. I think this we just answered. This is based on static analysis on the code base. I think that's what we just spoke, right?
Is this based on static analysis on the code base?
Yeah, so again, when I say static analysis, it is all depends on, see, Xray comes up with a lot of predefined rules and violations, and the library of licensing validations and library of security, CVSS violations library. But defining the policy, like if you are having a Docker, if you are having a build 1 and build 2, this particular build, I'm more interested in validating both security and license, and the second one, I'm not interested in license, only security. So this configuration need to be done in Xray server. So like I just said, maybe you can have a remote server for the whole organization, and then using a regex or using a pattern of builds, you can configure a watch, and against that you can start scanning. So it will do the respective analysis based on your watch's configuration.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you, Leela. And final call for getting the t-shirt free. So let's go into this link and let's fill up the form. Okay, let me stop my share. So if anybody has any questions or anything you want to add, just feel free to unmute and let's start the discussion area. Please.
Yeah, I have one question, but I'd like to give floor to the audience. Jonathan, you have something?
Yeah, so I'm using, I'm not using Jenkins, we're using BuildKite over here. Do you have any integrations with that?
Yeah, Leela, I think you're muted.
Ari wants to take on that.
I'm not sure if hi Jonathan, this is Ari. I'm not sure if Leela is if Leela, are you able to unmute yourself? I'll Slack Leela in just a moment. Jonathan, can you repeat the question? Because if I'm not able to answer it for you, I will make sure that we get back to you with that, because I'm not sure why.
I'm looking at the various integrations of cloud providers, CI/CD providers that you're already integrated with. Jenkins is one of them. BuildKite is what we use over here. Do you have an integration with BuildKite or?
Could you? I'm going to ask you if you don't. Would you mind going ahead and spelling that out for me?
I've just put it in the chat. It's in the chat.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know the answer to that 100%, but we will get that. BuildKite. Okay, we will get the answer for. We will get the answer for that. And let me just Slack Leela here. Are you still there? And see why or what the issue is. I think someone else mentioned that there was another question that we'd like to be able to get the answer for you as well. Interesting. I'm not sure why what happened.
Yeah, it's I have one question. I mean, it's a very generic question though. So in the projects I'm working, yeah, there is, I mean, very little done. I mean, scanning the code, but we haven't gone in depth like how to properly mitigate that process. Usually, it's a seasonal. I mean, some third-party team, they help us find the vulnerabilities and yeah, mitigate those. But up to the package level, it's done in very less manner. Even yeah, I myself skip that NPM audit fixes so many times. So yeah, for a starter, what do you suggest? Like, how should they? I mean, start with. I mean, should they? I think you have mentioned it in the docs. You guys provide a free 14 days trial, and yeah, what's the process next for someone who is looking to do this assessment and make their application more secure and follow the secure practices? What's the step forward?
That makes sense. Well, so basically you're looking I think the question is what step after what steps do you need to take after the 14-day trial to get what you're looking for from a best practices standpoint?
Yeah, not just 14 days after. It's a general question, like if somebody is starting this process, like
okay.
So how should they start?
Okay, well, let me get what I can do is I will get the answer to that and then update the link. So you have that on the sheet as well. And I apologize. I'm not sure. I don't think Leela just said bye-bye and left. So I'm not sure what the technical difficulty is, but we'll definitely do our best to go ahead and get that for you as well. And let's see here. And I'm also going to put a note here for the integration that you were requesting with BuildKite, Jonathan. So we can check on that as well. Okay. And I like the Google Sheet, by the way. I've sat in, I don't know, about 200 meetups in the last year. Leela is back now. Yay. And she lost. There you go. Thanks, Leela. There was a couple of questions that I couldn't answer and I was stalling to the best of my ability. So I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, thanks. I lost power, so I connected back on the mobile.
One of the questions, Leela, came from Jonathan. He wanted to know if does JFrog have BuildKite integration? I have not heard of it, but maybe you could speak to that.
I have heard about it, but I don't have complete knowledge. But as far as I remember, BuildKite is the kind of continuous delivery pipeline, which is similar to Jenkins. And they have integration with Artifactory as well. You will be able to pull the artifacts from Artifactory using their integration into BuildKite. This is all I know. I don't know anything more than that.
I'll look and see if we have any documentation on that, and if we do, I'll get that back to you on that, Jonathan. Awesome. And also Milan had a little bit more detailed question he'd like to ask as well.
Yeah, it's basically like what's the step forward for somebody who is trying to start fresh on this journey, like either using JFrog or without JFrog, like how do they start to manage their vulnerabilities? Like what's your advice? Where should they start?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer this question. Harry, you have any idea whom they can check with? Do we have any portal where they can talk about this?
Yeah, so I think if I understand the question right now, Milan, so it doesn't matter. So basically, let's say you're not doing, let's say from a vulnerability standpoint, you're really starting at square one. Where is a good, where you begin? What's the right starting point to do that, correct?
Yeah, it's a very open question. Like somebody here in Meetup, they might be just starting that process. So yeah, we have taught so many things about that in the talk itself, but as a like straightforward guideline, what could be the process?
Yeah. So what's that? What's a good good beginning point or something like that? And I think it's a little bit. Leela, do you have any advice on where, if an organization does not have anything in place right now, where they would want to begin in order to start this journey? What would be a good point? Okay, well, that's definitely something that we can get back to you. And again, like I was saying, I love the Google Sheet. I've sat in over 200 meetups in the last year, maybe even more, and I have never seen someone effectively use this method. I love it. I think it's great, and I might use it for my meetup too.
Great.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's just a backlog, so it has all the questions and answers.
Sometimes the simplest things is really a great answer, because you hear questions and you hear links and all of these things going across. And I might even I might make a copy of this and say wow, and use it for mine. So thank you for the impact you had on me.
Okay, so anybody, if you want to ask anything, or maybe share the practice you are doing, or maybe any kind of difficulty or anything you want to talk about related with the topic. Any more people, please?
Yeah, Tulsi, you might want to share something, Manish.
I'm good. No.
So I want to share like the simplest approach that I'm also doing is so even if we don't have JFrog or any of the third-party components. So in case of the Docker, I would say like the cloud itself, like Google, AWS, so they have the inbuilt vulnerability scanning things, which will give us ability to do the scanning of the Docker image. They don't go into the like artifact level, but that is the packages which are inside the container, so that get is scanned, and they also show us the severity of the vulnerability inside those Docker images in almost real time. They might take a few seconds or maybe even a minute if the image is big. So that will be a good one. And also there are like few open source code scanning platforms. So like Sneak, so Sneak also has open source scanning tool. So that is also one option if you are going for the open source. And so yeah, so I just want to share about these tools, which will be a good starting point for do the scanning, like the security topic or the scanning or those vulnerability things which often miss during the starting things, and we don't care, but in the long run that we like very much pain. So I just suggest to start in the beginning and get some metrics out of it, and also evaluate the process or evaluate the packages or the uses of the packages or even the code analysis. So that will be a very good in the long run.
Yeah, I know a package. I think everybody knows it is. This a bot from the GitHub that usually ask for the version upgrades that depend a bot or something. Yeah, it usually does so much of housekeeping for me.
Yeah, I think that's available for everybody using GitHub at the moment. So it used to be a private beta, but it's freely available.
Yeah.
Docker Hub as well has container scanning as well. You just need to enable it on your repository. And I think if you're using ECS or any Amazon services, you know, you've got free container scanning there as well, and in Google. So it's just, I think, a matter of getting your process right to get it hooked back into your task list of things to do, and it just needs oversight from within your organization.
Yeah, and also the GitHub scanning does the scan of the AWS keys. So, so this is like very bad practice, but GitHub just gives the alert if someone is hard coding the AWS keys, and it just alerts to the GitHub admin. But I think we have to enable the feature for those kind of security alerts. Yeah.
So, and any more questions or comments? Are we good?
Okay, seems we are good. Okay, so let's do wrap up. So thank you, Ari. Thank you, Leela, for getting in touch and sharing a very useful session. So, and also thank you all for being with us. And so I hope, or I'm almost sure, like you got something useful in this topic, and you will also implement a new thing between the security and vulnerability scanning on your workplace or in your project, which will be very much beneficial. So by saying that, I just want to thank you all again, and we'll see you on the next meetup in next month. Till then, just stay connected with us on Slack or just connect with us on the Google Doc. Yeah, and already do we do like the T-shirt raffle now, or
You know what? It's better. It's better than that. Anybody that entered in is going to get one today. I made an executive decision. So anyone that put it in, we're gonna mail a JFrog T-shirt to. So if it's there, and as long as it doesn't, and if it's our pleasure to send it, and we'll get it to you. Okay.
Yeah, sure. That's very interesting, and
Okay.
thanks for that.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So thank you all, and also happy TR. So we are having a very interesting festival right ahead next week. So just do celebration wisely and get in touch with the family and friends. Enjoy, and we'll see you in next month. Okay,
Thank you,
you all,
everybody.
and bye bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.